All right, we are live. Just gonna wait for people to start hopping in. Sorry that you guys can see my kitchen. Working on a new setup, so. Oh, hi David. How you doing? Just waiting for Carmen and a few more friends to join in. How has your... What is today? It's Tuesday. Duh. Hello, man of cars. Let me... Should work in a sec.
Hello.
Yay! Hello! How we doing? All right, everybody. We have our guest. I don't know. This is
Oh, yeah.
completely new face. I don't
Long
know if you
time
guys have ever
listener,
met
first
Carmen
time
before.
calling. Yeah.
Well, welcome to Around the Realm, everybody. Today, oh, hi, Alfie. Today we have Carmen Askerneese, Temporary Legends co-owner and the DM for Sovereign of Death. I know people pretty much know you already, but I'm just gonna have you do a
Yeah,
little
hey
intro
everybody.
just for our new friends that have come
I'm
in and
Carmen,
may not be
and
as familiar.
I'm the Dungeon Master for Season 1 of our tabletop actual play show, Realms and Roleplay. Our first season is called Sovereign of Death. We have about 8 episodes out now on YouTube. You should go check them out. And I'm really excited to talk about some of the crazy things that happened in this week's episode.
I forgot it was this episode because when I was watching, it was like, this is so far, this is the one that has really put the death in Sovereign of Death, and it's one of the most intense episodes. But before we get into really dig into the episode, I'd love to get to know a little bit more about the processes of DM, how I guess to start off with what inspired you to make
the idea for
Sovereign
Realms
of
and
Death?
Roleplay and Sovereign of Death. So Sovereign of Death is a product of wanting to do a tabletop show. And I saw a live performance, a live show of Dimension 20 at RTX in 2017, 2018, a long time ago. And I was like, whoa,
Oh, wow.
so D&D doesn't have to be fantasy, because fantasy stuff was never really my jam. I think mostly because representation and all the other kind of stuff. But so I saw that and I was like, whoa, I want to see what I could do with it. And so I had a friend in undergraduate school who always built these really big living fleshed out worlds. And I was like, well, if I make a tabletop show and we start playing games in these different settings, and I can just build out a world like that, and it can be whatever I want it to be. And my day job is as a professional game developer, and doing that, you don't really get a chance to, in the AAA space, you're kind of working on one project, and unless you're a studio head or a game director, you kind of have one area of the game where you have some ownership sometimes, but for the most part, you don't really have the type of creative freedom that you would have on a tabletop show or something like that. So I was really excited to make the Yashan setting. I came up with all this backstory and all this kind of crazy stuff. And then when we started to play, a lot of that stuff I just kind of threw out because, this was my first time DMing Dungeons and Dragons. And I was like, oh boy, I want to make sure that people have fun. And so I also want to make sure that I know the rules well enough to break them if I have to. I think that I was successful in one of those things. I think people had fun. I feel like I probably still don't really know all the rules like a lot of the other DMs out there. But yeah, I think that seeing that live show and learning that I could make these worlds into whatever I wanted them to be was cool.
Hey Irma, back at you, icon. Definitely. I think I've had this conversation with everybody so far that's been on Around the Realm. It's honestly a lot more fun. There will be people that are when they play D&D, they stick to the rules. This is it. If you don't know, I'm out. But I feel like it's a lot more fun when you're just and you're just kind of having fun. Like when I played it, I really don't even know if we were technically playing Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, we had the dice, but we were just rolling and just doing whatever we kind of
Yeah.
wanted, and it just made it a lot more enjoyable, honestly. Um, so just getting into like Sovereign of Death, I've talked before with the cast members and like how this was, as you said, this was your first time being a DM, and this was some of the members like first time really getting into getting into like D&D and like tabletop stuff. So how did you like so I guess like it's kind of two-parter, like how did you meet the cast, like each of the cast members, and like how did you decide like I want you guys
Okay,
to like all
so
meet
this
and
is a
we're gonna
long story,
create
but I'll try to
something
make it short.
amazing.
So the short version is I saw the D20 live show and I was like, I want to make my own tabletop show. And then I was like, I don't have any money. And then I was like, I don't have I'm not able to do that at work because it's like not a thing that they care about or whatever. So I was like, how am I going to do this? And so I was like, I was learning more about like that space and logistics. And so I'm developing and EPing this like show, and then I'm also trying to learn the rules at the same time. And so I was like, okay, I'll do a live show at PAX because I know the PAX people, and I want to do more panels and stuff. And if that goes well, then we'll see what happens. And so I reached out to a bunch of people that I knew in the game dev community and the voice acting community, and just talked to them online. And I was like, hey, y'all want to do a live show together at PAX? And then a lot of people were like, yeah. And I was like, oh, shoot. So I kind of did the thing of like, let me text all my friends and see who replies. And then like more people replied than I intended. And so I was like, okay, I have too many people now. And so I ended up casting for 2 live shows at PAX. And then we did the live shows, and somebody came up to me after one of the live shows. We didn't play D&D at the live shows, by the way. They're on the internet somewhere if you want to find them, and maybe I'll link them someday. But well, no, okay. I think only one of them is actually.
I
I
did
don't know.
not
I
know
don't know.
that.
But anyway, so one person came up to me after the show, and they were like, man, that was so much fun. You should do more of this. Like, y'all should do more. That was like really cool, and it's like different than some of the other stuff that's out there. And I was like, yeah, we should do more of this. So, the people that I was doing the live show with are all like professionals in their own right in the tabletop space and in their own professions as voice actors and game developers and stuff. And so I was like, I need to find other people. I felt like I was kind of what's the word? I needed to find people that would have more free time to start from the bottom, and work my way up. And so I learned a lot from those live shows and working with those professionals. And then I reached out to all of the folks who are on season 1, who are people that I've met through mutual friends and just over the course of my journeys over the last few years. And I was like, hey, y'all, like, let's all get together and make a show. And they were really excited about it. And so I sent them the world building stuff, and they sent me ideas for characters. And that very first episode, we actually weren't able to do a session 0 because everybody's schedules were so busy. And so that first episode was when we all met for the first, well, they all met for the first time, but I knew all of them individually. And I was like, well, I sure hope these people like each other. And they did, so.
Wow, wait, so like that was like the first episode was the first time that like they literally like I mean I knew that was
That
like
was it.
when they first met, but I didn't know if there was like a pre-call, but like
so,
that was it. That was like
actually
cool.
So there's like there's a little bit of editing magic. So the first episode is actually the second take of the first episode. So we recorded the episode in bulk. And I think the first time we recorded, we did episode like 1 through 3 or something like that. And then we had to redo the first episode because I think some of our equipment wasn't set up the right way, or OBS wasn't set up the right way or something. But by that point, we had kind of already gotten into the rhythm of it. And so like the beginning of the first episode of like the heroes coming into town, previously being on an adventure, that wasn't originally how it started. Like the very first take we did of the first episode, I think I did the tropey thing of like, oh, they all meet in a bar, or like they all like I think there's like a fight in the town square, and they all something like that, where it was just like they're all in Stone Starry already. But then when we did the second take, I was like, oh, you just came back from an adventure, like, and in my headspace, I was implying that like the other stuff is canon, and you did that off camera, and now you're here. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No,
Oh
never.
my God, that's so cool. I want to see that now. So I guess it's kind of like an art question. So for like when you were working with Sage of Magic, Samantha, when you're working with them, did they give you the character descriptions beforehand, like a list of like, this is, like, this is my character, this is what they look like, and then did you do the art for the characters, or did you just do them all
Sam
after?
and I went to graduate school together, and I knew them from school, and we worked on several projects together in school, a bunch of different games that we made together. And I knew their art style, and I liked their art style a lot. And so I had an idea for, I really wanted to like so one of the things about Yashan is that Mylan Matey's character is the last human. And so I was like, the monsters are always the bad guys. And like, I love Halloween Town and all those other kind of quirky movies. And I was just like, what are the monsters up to? And like, what is monster society like? And I always thought that was more interesting. So again, like I said, of like what I learned from watching Dimension 20 is that like, it doesn't have to be traditional high fantasy. So yeah, it's like a monster world. Matey's the last human. And so I wanted to like, I went through like the monster manual to find different monsters that I thought would have personality traits that would make them more ambitious, right? So like looking at the monster descriptions and stuff and trying to find monsters that fit the story I wanted to tell. And then I tried to come up with ways to make them unique, so it wasn't just the art that was in the D&D books. And so try to put a little bit of their personalities into it. And like each of the characters, the NPCs, like in the lore of Yashan, they were all like players in the history of things that happened before. And so I wanted them to kind of like be important to the world, but to the players, they're just like people who are around. And I always thought that was interesting of like, because I think about like the sequel trilogy and like when they meet Luke, it's like, oh my gosh, it's Luke Skywalker. But it's like, what if it's like, oh, it's just some old dude or whatever, like he's just kind of in our way. And I thought that would be interesting.
Oh, thanks, Armand Marconi. Warby Parker? Yes. Where'd you get your glasses, Carmen?
I don't know. There was this
people would like to know.
Austin. I think it was like something with a W. Maybe.
Warby Parker? Wait, hold on. That'd be really funny. Because they would say it right on the edge. Because I know they're I think they're in Boston. That'd be really funny if you got them from Warby Parker.
Lacoste? I think this is the brand name. Yeah. Sorry, y'all. Some glasses from Boston. I don't remember. Yeah, just in the trash.
Just kind of picked them off the street. Like, hey, this works. So. just dumpster diving for some glasses. Most affordable way to go about it. But kind of like branching off into like when you were discussing about the NPCs. So when you're talking about like all these NPCs, you have all these amazing NPCs like, you got Keith, Dreamy Keith, Nightingale Switchblade, which we'll get to. Thank you, Mylan, if you're watching, for reminding me about that. And like the designs of like Skiplighter and Calderon, who we're definitely gonna talk about. So like when you design them, do you kind of like, sometimes I forget, like when I was watching this episode today, we were talking about Bathos and how he was like a white dragonborn. I sometimes forget that like you can't see, like the players can't see them. Like when I'm watching the finalized thing, I'm like, what do you mean? What, you don't know what he looks like? He's right there. So do you kind of like for example, like when Bathos or when Keith was introduced, did you just kind of like come up on the spot, or like before your session, did you like kind of like think like, okay, I'm gonna make this character and I'll make this character, and if they fit in the story, they fit in the story, or is it like
Yeah.
fantasy name
So
generator and like
season
just, like,
one is
pop
wild because there's so many NPCs. And like most of the NPCs in season one were improv.
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Like
Well, because
completely.
I
Like,
mean, like I had like Keith was a quest giver because they were messing around in the town a lot, and I was like, I just need them to like because it's a show for the internet. We need to like the story needs to happen, and so I was gonna have Keith just be like, blah 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 blah. Here's the plot, but then they really liked him, so he stayed.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and
So,
thus Meath
so a
was
lot of the
born,
NPCs,
everybody. Meath was
I would
born.
make up descriptions for them on the spot, and then I have to go back and watch them to send Sam a description.
Oh no. Oh wow. So since like I'm still, like I'm learning. I mean, my mom and I are both, my mom watches Sovereign of Death, and like I kind of have to
Oh,
explain things to her
yay, hi,
as
Mom.
she's like, "What's the dice for? Why are they rolling?" And I'm like, I mean, I know this at least. And I have a funny story about that later once we get into Nightingale Switchblade. But so like, what's the process like of as a DM? Because I feel like it's a little bit easier as a player because you're going along with the story, but like as the DM, you are making things happen. You're creating this whole world that the players are going along with. So, I mean, I guess like the dice are like a critical role where they play like like the numbers and stuff and like doing the checks and stuff. But like
Oh my gosh,
what
hectic.
was your day like as a DM?
So I think it was maybe season 2. Spoilers, there's gonna be a season 2, y'all. Woo! I think that was kind of when I started to have a process. But for season 1, I had like plot beats, but I would never be married to those. So if the players found something more interesting, then we would just do that, and I would just change the story to try to fit whatever they were doing.
Dang. I mean, because like I just like the whole hooray, congrats, thank you, Marconi and Irma, what cheerleaders, love having y'all on the chat. So yeah, season 2, yes, has spoilers, but season 2 definitely coming. So I guess now will be the best time. Mylan, if you're in here, you're in here, and if not, I hope you watch this recording.
Zelda.
So Carmen. So we were branching off about NPCs, so I feel like this is a great time to talk about it now. So, okay, first we'll start off with a story because I told this to Carmen, but since my mom is watching Realms and Roleplay, I haven't mentioned anything about the fact that Nightingale Switchblade is my favorite character because, like, I don't know what part she's at. So then she texted me. She's like watching through, and she's like, "Yeah, I like it. It's so cool. I wish I had this when I was a kid." And then she's like, "They killed off Switchblade. Why? He was such a good character." And I'm like, "Yes, yes. The love for Nightingale Switchblade runs in our blood." So this is for my mom. This is for Mylan and Carmen. I'm going to put you on the spotlight. And I'm going to ask you this, actually. So, okay, let's say that Nightingale, I know he was kind of like there just to be the sacrificial, that he was just, the poor guy was set up for being the sacrifice. But let's say that he wasn't, and let's say somebody else was. So what do you think it would be like if Nightingale lived and like was able to actually be the intern? Like, what do you think? Would anything have been like drastically different, or would it kind of remain the same just with him?
I think Nightingale Switchblade, the name for the character came from a PC, and I was like, I like this name, so I'll give it to one of my NPCs in Sovereign of Death. And I think if he survived, he probably would have died in this episode for sure.
Yeah, I can't see him surviving that. I mean, no. Poor guy. I mean, I don't think he had much
He was, and
in
he was
terms of
innocent.
defense
He didn't do
anyways,
anything
but he
wrong.
was so cute.
Yeah.
He was so
Too
cute.
good for the
I mean, this just too good, too pure. I get it. I mean, he would not have wanted to stay around, so I guess that'll bring us into episode 8, because boy, is this episode one of the most stressful, high intense, anxiety, putting the death and sovereign of death episode. Like, and it started like, I mean, we were off to a good spot. I mean, we weren't off to a great spot. Wynn's mom was about to get executed, or was put in jail to get executed. So that's not really a great spot. But I mean, we started fine. I mean, now I can say their names. So we meet Bathos, which is the white dragon, and Skoldana. Their designs so cool, by the way. And Martin, being Martin Money, just kind of like leaves the room, which is the most Martin thing I've ever seen. And Skip Glider and Martin get into a pretty nasty fight. Wynn draws her weapon, and I mean, honestly, from the point with Bathos and Skoldana, you just knew that there was no friendly territory. They were not going to have a picnic. But I think what shocked me the most, especially when I watched it for the first time, was Calderon. I mean, I thought.
Oh my gosh! So I have a story
about
like, is my video? Am I breaking up? Because I feel like my video is really choppy. Okay, well, at least you can hear me though, right?
You're not breaking up right now, but you are a little blurry.
Okay, cool. Well, if it's breaking up, I'm sorry, folks.
I can hear it.
But so watching the episode back, I remember I watch a lot of anime, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool to like tease some of the bosses that are going to be here this season, right? Because we haven't really seen any big bads. We just saw the skeleton army. But Dirge and Calderon and Bathos and Skoldana were all like boss fights that I planned out for the team to have down the line after they leveled up. and I had like these encounters planned, and then Aaron draws the bow on Bathos, and I'm like, okay. If I'm watching it back, I'm like, I see myself thinking in the moment, and I'm like, does Bathos like agree with Aaron? Do I let her roll persuasion? Like, what happens? And so I was like, well, okay, so this guy is like, he's pretty hardcore, so I feel like he wouldn't like being threatened, so he would attack her. And so I knew he had that 7th level spell, and I was like, well, he'll just do this thing, and then like she'll be down, and that'll be the end of it. But then the fight in the hallway happened, and I was like, oh no, what have I done? And so yeah, it's TPK.
Yeah, all hell kind of broke loose at that point, because there was 2. So you mean Martin Money's just going to be Martin Money, so that fight was not going to like calm down at all. So Skip Glider and Martin get into a pretty nasty fight, and at that point, I think Wynn was already down, and Matey fought hard in this episode. You got to see her like sweet. She was like holding her own, and Arya was doing pretty good. I mean, I was a little nervous with the rolls and stuff, but Arya held her own. I mean, poor Wynn was down, and then Skip Glider and Martin got into a nasty fight. I mean, thankfully Fee was not there, because I was like,
yeah.
Don't even touch Fee. Too pure. Hello, new friend joining in. Too pure. So in the middle of that intense battle, that's when we find out that Calderon is a traitor. Poor Keith. I mean, we also find out, my favorite part we find out is that Keith is pretty. I love how in this intense battle, like everyone, like Wynn and Martin were out at that time, and it's just Mady and Arya, and then we're like, wait, but is Keith pretty? We need to find out if he's pretty. So we find out that Keith's pretty, and poor Anne. Anne got pretty badly beaten, and Mady was the last standing. But here's where we get really emotional, you guys. When Mady is the last standing, she sees Martin, like he's like, what do I want to say? Like spewing out like a bunch of money. And we lost.
He died, Martin. Y'all. He died.
Lost Martin.
Spoilers.
Money. Yeah. And at the end, Martin just sees like this light, and then he sees his dad, and he takes his hand. I'm just like, honestly, I was not expecting Martin out of any of them to be the one to like go. It's
here's
like it
the
had
thing.
to come to
Off
like
camera,
the first character to go.
Off camera,
I was expecting Martin.
He was like, "Look, bro, I want to like come in and be a chaos gremlin, and then I want to die." And I was like, I got you, fam. I got you. But I was not planning on killing him in this episode. And then, you know, the dice had other ideas, and then everybody else went down. And I remember after we recorded this episode, everybody was like, "Do we do it again?" And I was like, "No, like, give me a minute, I'll figure something out, and we'll just like come back in a few weeks." But it was so funny recording it, because I remember just like thinking in my head of like, do I bail? Like, what does everybody just like are all the enemies just gonna be like, "Oh, you know what? Never mind. We're gonna leave." Or like, so, but then I was like, no, because it's called Sovereign of Death, so let's kill them all. We'll figure it out.
I mean, stay true to the name. I love it. That would also be me though. Like just coming into a D&D campaign, like, all right, I just want to cause a bunch of chaos, and I want to die. That's it. I mean, I would have preferred to have died in the first episode. But I mean, just knowing, you know, no spoilers, but just knowing Sovereign of Death, it turned out really well, and it's really interesting, and I can't wait for you guys to see next week's episode, because it only gets better from here. I mean, we end with, you know, everybody's out. Poor Keith tries to be, you know, he really tries, but he tried to negotiate at one point. I'm like, all right, after everything that's happened so far, I don't think anyone's gonna have like a tea party to negotiate. But he was kind of too wholesome to be in there, but he was standing up for Mady, because #meef, everybody, #meef. I'm so excited. Yes, you should be, because next episode is Monday, and you get to find out what happens, because this is one of the most intense episodes. So we end up with everybody out cold.
Oh, and we'll see.
Martin's like permanently out cold, but everybody else is out cold. So yeah, we'll see. I'm so ready for Christmas. Can we believe it's in 5 days? Yes, it's almost Christmas to those who celebrate. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. Oh, that's right. We're not going to see everybody after that, right? Until after that. Yeah. Wow, it's 5 days. All right. Well, any other burning questions, burning topics? Because we are almost at 6:30, folks. So, Carmen, thank you so much for being on. Do you have any other final things you want to talk about?
Some other stuff happens, you know. There's lots of surprises to come.
Yeah. Yes, there is. There's so many surprises to come. I can't wait for you guys to watch. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Around the Realm. Thank you, Carmen, for joining in as we discuss a little bit about behind the scenes and the intensity that was this episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and be sure to tune in next